What's the rarest way to die in CK3? You might think the rarest way to die is by a 1% death event. If you get this event, pick this option, and roll a 1% chance, you can die by laughing too hard. But all of the 1% death events come up pretty often, so you've probably had it happen to you once or twice. If you're a real gamer like me, you might know that you can also get killed by carp. Yeah, like the fish, you get pulled into a carp pond and die by fish slaps. It's super random, but that's not the rarest death in CK3 either. I was sent a list of over 12,000 recorded character deaths by my friend Agami, who you might know as Long Game Short, and the rarest one, according to this list, dying to a board game accident. I don't understand it either. Who's the most popular character in CK3? It's not Ivar the Boneless, William the Conqueror, or anyone else that actually mattered historically. It's Hæsteinn, Count of Montagu in 867. But why would a random Viking on the coast of France be so popular? Historically, he had a pretty interesting life. He raided around Spain, Morocco, France, and England for most of his life. But that's not really why he's popular in CK3. In CK3, he starts with 4,000 troops, a lot of martial, and a ton of money. And because he's Norse, you can invade basically anywhere with him, and he's strong enough to win, which both makes him really fun to play and the subject of basically every koi fish video. But here's what makes him even more popular. In the past, he used to declare invasions for random kingdoms all over the world, from England to Italy to even India somehow. And he also used to live to like 150 for some reason. Nowadays, he's a lot more chill, but he's still really fun and powerful to play, making for a great starting character for all your crazy campaign ideas. Power score, 7 out of 10. Fun score, 9 out of 10. So this is the most impressive thing I've ever seen. CK3 player and Reddit user Dr. Sandwich 8 posted this screenshot of reaching 100 development in every single county in CK3, with no mods, no cheats, and no debug mode. And the craziest part is that he did it in only 100 years. He basically solved the whole game. Like, look at all of that yellow. Just a casual 600 gold a month. First he had to world conquest, and it took him a very leisurely 11 months to do it. Jesus Christ. Then the problem became, how do you farm development that quickly? You could do the normal thing of building buildings and waiting around forever, or you could use the greatest exploit ever. By using the hold court decision, one of the outcomes lets you pay your seneschal to hold a cadastre in your realm, which increases every single one of your held county's development. So basically you just need to hold every county in the game and then roll this outcome a bunch. Make sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel Sandwich8 to see the inevitable video recap he'll make showing us how to do it. What's the worst trait in CK3? There's a lot of bad traits, but some of them are definitely worse, so I'll rate them all with a bad score. Lazy is kind of a sad trait. You get -1 to every stat, but you also get some stress reduction, so overall it's not too bad. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. And next up is Just. You might think Just is pretty good, but it's really annoying if you want to do any sort of intrigue. Like, oh no, I can't murder you, I'm too just. Bad rating, 5 out of 10. Compassionate is like Just, but even worse. It's all the downside with reduction to intrigue, and you can't even sacrifice people because you feel too bad about it. 8 out of 10. But the worst one easily is Shy. Interacting with any character stresses you out so much it's not even funny. Whether it's hiring knights for your army, recruiting people to your court, taking event options, or even talking to people you like. And you don't even get any stress reduction from Feast. 11 out of 10. Bad. And kind of super relatable. I still can't handle random phone calls. Who's the hardest character in CK3? If you're a new player, you might think it's Harold Godwinson, invaded by Denmark and William the Conqueror at the same time. But if you've played CK3 enough, you know it's not actually that difficult to beat both of them. A harder starting character is Shikamunis of Acre. You don't have any kids and you're a eunuch, so you physically can't have any. But I don't think it's the hardest either. You can get a wife who cheats on you and then you can just pretend like her kid is yours. And there's even some events to adopt some random kids too. You might think it's Ross DeWitt of Ethiopia, a solitary Jewish character who's surrounded by Coptic Christians, including your liege. If you don't want to convert, it's super hard to build up a kingdom without getting revoked. You can ask for religious rights though, so that makes it way easier to build up your realm. The hardest starting character in CK3 is Ayla of Northumbria. This character is basically designed to lose at game start. You have around 1,000 troops versus a 2-front war of invading 5,000 Viking troops each. I actually did this. It only took me 4 hours and 10 full restarts for one war. Intrigue is basically gambling, and I failed too many 95% success murder plots for me to ever think this is more than just gambling. D tier. Stewardship is pretty great. You can build up your lands, do some development, extort your people for money, extort rulers for their money too. I kind of love stewardship. A tier. Marshal, herder, I hit people with big swords. Honestly, it's good for tribal characters and for smaller realms who need more military power. Also really good good for rating, but you do outgrow it pretty quick when you can doom stack and hire all the best commanders you want to. I'm going C tier. Learning is my goat. Dev bonuses, research bonuses, all around stat increases. It makes forming new religions easier and cheaper, and it even lets you live longer. I'm going S tier. Does anyone ever even use diplomacy? What is CK3? So I guess my shorts have reached enough people for people unfamiliar with CK3 to ask. So here's an overview. CK3 is short for Crusader Kings 3, the third installment of the Crusader Kings series. The Crusader Kings games are role-playing games, kinda like The Sims. You do medieval political shenanigans to make alternate versions of history and tell unique stories. The first one from 2005 looks terrible, so don't bother with it, but the second one's pretty worth playing. Other strategy games, you normally just interact with other countries, but in CK3, every action in the game requires you to interact with another character or your own character. To add more land to your country, you actually need to declare war on the person who owns that land. And you can't manage everything yourself, so you need to have vassals underneath you. And if they don't like you, they will revolt and kill you. Plus, you can do things like eat the Pope, so it's fun for all ages. I was wrong. A while ago, I made a short talking about how the rarest way to die in CK3 was by board game accident. But secretly, there's a way to die that's so rare and so unlikely, you'll never see anyone die because of it, making it the true rarest death in CK3. It's a rare event that you can get while traveling, specifically only in these parts of the world. First, you need to have a character who's over 60. Second, you need your character to have an unusually bad health, like close to death territory. Third, you need a personality type that isn't sadistically inclined. And then you need to roll the duck event. This is an event chain with multiple different endings. Then you need to roll the good memory. This gives you the positive duck stalking hidden modifier. If you then roll a 5% chance, you can get the rarest death in CK3, dying by cuteness overload. You've probably never heard about the silliest speedrun of all time. Recently, I talked about CK3 player Sandwich 8, who managed to do a world conquest in just 11 months. And a lot of you thought that was fake or just ridiculous, which is totally fair. You'd think to conquer the over 2,500 provinces that exist in CK3, it'd have to take a long time. But there's a world conquest that's even shorter than that. It's so short that he did it without even unpausing the game, with no cheats and Iron Man on. But Cara, how is that even possible? Frimsy made a full video talking about it if you're interested, but a big part of it requires a pretty funny exploit. If you start the game by getting the war screen to show up before picking your character, it tricks the game into thinking you're playing a non-Iron Man game. And non-Iron Man games let you switch characters at will. From there, you can just swear fealty and surrender wars. Boom! 0-day world conquest. It's basically cheating. Camman 18. What are you talking about? I'm nothing like. What's the rarest trait in CK3? You might think it's a genetic one, like Hail, Genius, or even Giant, but these actually aren't all that rare, and with careful marriages, you can get them in your family super easily. More rare than that are fully maxed out traits for things like Eager Reveler, Traveler, and Hostelator. You'll basically never see an NPC with them. They take a really long time to get, requiring you to spend decades doing them. Even less common are special condition traits, like Shrewd and Dull needing really good or really bad educations, and specific religious ones like Reincarnated. But the rarest one that you'll never see anyone ever have is Immortal, because while it's in the game code, there's never been any way to get it. At least as far as we know. CK3 DLC's tier list. Which one should you buy? First up is every wardrobe pack. Fine for what they are, but they're literally just clothes. I don't know anyone who'd actually care about these, unless your favorite game is Roblox Dress to Impress or something. F tier, you'd buy these last. Next up, Legends of the Dead. I don't like it because the plagues and diseases make me sad. That's how I'd say if I was an actual NPC. Here's the question. Do you think Ethelbard was happy to see his third child die of typhus either? No, obviously not. Even major cities like Constantinople only had a few 100,000 people because people got sick and died all the time. And that's even before the Black Death. If you can body plagues like it's nothing without being all dramatic about it, oh no, my development. You are a Giga Chad. I like the legend system too. Sue me. Easy A tier. What if I told you one of the most interesting adventures in Crusader Kings 3 is a childless 60-year-old woman who's the last surviving member of her dynasty? I'm talking about Mistress Wallada Umayyad, and you might recognize that last name. She's the last of the once mighty Umayyad dynasty, which once ruled all over the Arabic world, but in 1066 has since lost their grip on power. Mistress Wallada Umayyad was a famous poet in real life, and in CK3 she starts with a lot of money and her own unique artifact, a double moon time book of poetry, which over the span of your lifetime you can improve by adding new entries, mostly about old romances from your youth, with both men and women. How spicy. 5 years into the game you get an event where you can also adopt an heir, who just so happens to be another bi-poet with some great stats. From there you can continue the Umayyad legacy with conquest, poetry, and seduction. Power score, 1 out of 10. Fun score, 7 out of 10. This is the hardest start in CK3, and here's how I beat it. There's 2 5k troops over here. I have 1,000 troops to myself. You're sort of just supposed to lose this start date. Yeah. Okay. Great. I think that's a restart. Wait a second. Oh, okay. I was executed by Blood Eagle. Break this betrothal. I can call on someone else, right? Like, are they still in the war? I can just like stack them infinitely. That's the way to do it. Send all of Europe to fight the Vikings. How does the map look in the war screen? Okay, come on, please. We can win this. Allies, go. Holy frick. I won. I actually did it. Oh my god. I got 214 gold for that. I just learned about a crazy mystery, one that's confused and fascinated people since the 1400s, the mystery of the Voynich manuscript. It's a really weird handwritten book carbon dated to the 1400s, which includes mysterious drawings and writing in a completely unknown language, the contents of which have never been deciphered. You know what that means. Aliens. Okay, I'm just kidding. Some monk was probably just making a medieval brain rot book and trying to sell it as a rare manuscript. And it's the same in CK3, where if you get a random court event, you can be told about a rare manuscript, which has a chance of spawning as what the code refers to as the Voynich manuscript. And the description matches it too, but it also gives it a completely random name. This one is called Rat My Honeycomb. Have you ever tried to visit places like the pyramids, maybe wondering what marvels could be over there? But then when you actually travel there, all you get is a sad little pop-up. Well, that's no more. So here's how to be a wandering noble in CK3. First, you can either start as a noble or a landless character. The DLC name's a red herring, you can do it as both. Then you pick the new wandering lifestyle. If you want to spend your life exploring nature and touching grass, unlike me, you can go down the wayfarer tree. And with the storyteller perk, go on hikes and even build up your fame. Or you can go down the voyager tree and visit all sorts of unique destinations, getting cool new events and some perks in return for it too. So I saw this article on Slate about a concerned parent giving their kid a copy of Crusader Kings 3, and then they wrote to the editor saying that they're really disturbed. This video game is corrupting my kid. And I thought, oh my goodness, the dangers of a parent ignoring the age ratings. The Crusader Kings games are pretty realistic medieval RPGs, including a lot of the messed up stuff that happened during this time period, which still would have been the parents' fault, but I could have understood. Maybe their kid is scarred for life after deliberately eating the Pope. But no, it's really dumb. First of all, this article is behind a paywall. Journalism. Secondly, it basically says, my 15-year-old son said it's funny that a not straight character has 3 wives and 8 kids. And I find his joke extremely inappropriate. Like, ma'am, it's funny because it's ironic. It's not inappropriate at all. What's actually inappropriate is Slate making me pay real life money to read about this shit. CK3 DLC tier list. Which one should you get? Part 2. Fate of Iberia. Playing in Spain is really fun, and I love a lot of the flavor they added, but it also feels like you need to pass the bar exam to get the struggle phase you want. Like, what is this? If you really like this DLC, you probably think you're smarter than everyone else around you. C tier. Wandering Nobles. Pretty fun, just a normal event pack, but it also lets you travel more, gives you more of a reason to visit monuments. Definitely one of my favorite features. B tier. Friends and Foes and Wards and Wardens. They're both pretty small event packs about friendship and about childhood, both of which I never had, so D tier. Tours and Tournaments is pretty good. I like all of the travel elements it added. Tournaments are fun and quirky. I think it really helps you feel like you're actually a part of the Middle Ages. It's like a real-life Renaissance fair. A tier. And finally, Royal Court. Might be a controversial pick, but I really like Royal Court. I think it added so much to CK3 that basically every update since then added on top of it. I'm gonna put it in S tier. What's the best men-at-arms in CK3? It seems like a stupid question since it depends on your own situation, right? Well, no. Some men-at-arms like war elephants and heavy cav, like cataphracts, are best for pure damage, but they come with tons of trade-offs. like cost and terrain penalties. Some other types like heavy infantry, including my beloved Varangian veterans, or the Mubarazun, have great damage and toughness without any terrain debuffs, but they're also really expensive. While cheaper men-at-arms like archers have way better damage per cost, which is a lot more useful in most situations. But there's one men-at-arms type that's actually the best, the longbowmen. They start with only 20 damage, but it increases by 10 every era. So by the final era, they're literally stronger than heavy infantry at less than half their cost. And just give them some levies too, they're a little squishy. What's the rarest decision in CK3? There's a few things that make a decision rare. First is how many different characters can see the decision. Like everyone seeing the Form a Kingdom decision if they just have a duchy. Next is how well known about it is. And third is what prerequisites it has. Like the Glass Monument decision only shows up if you're a distinguished lunatic to get a pretty stacked building in return. But there's one decision in CK3 so rare that it actually blew my mind when I first heard about it. And it's so unknown about, you've probably never heard about it before too. Shout out to this Redditor for telling us about it. So you might know that Heresiarch is really rare to get as a player. And you might also know that if you revive Zoroastrianism, that you can rekindle the holy fire. But if you instead play as a heresy of Zoroastrianism, like Mazdakite, you can instead take the decision to destroy the fire, giving you the trait Heresiarch and the best nickname in CK3, the Fire Quencher. Pretty cool, right? So I was playing CK3 yesterday, and one of my friends sent me a link to this post on r/Crusader Kings, where they're talking about me. Okay, not really. They're talking about the Immortal trait in the Ruler Designer that I got to preview. It takes 1,000 points, so it's way over the point limit. And people are asking if supernatural content's coming back to CK3. Some people were excited, some people weren't, but here's my take. Now, I will say that there is some spooky stuff in CK3 already. There's events about immortality and witchcraft where you commune with the Horned God, but clearly you're missing most of what was in CK2, where there were pits opening up to Lucifer's Funtime place. Some people say to just add all of it and to have a toggle, but I don't think they should do that. I think they should do supernatural stuff in ways that a lot of people believed back then. Since a lot of people believed you could call upon angels to do your bidding. Not explicitly, but sort of like how a lot of people believe in ghosts and UFOs today. And also did things like sleeping like this, or else the devil would possess you somehow. These are some CK3 achievements almost no one's ever seen. A perfect circle, should you ever win at inbreeding, is an achievement that features having only 2 distinct parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. And only 1.1% of players have ever gotten it. Insert Alabama joke here. Next up is the Ahab achievement. This basically just involves a lot of luck and time. It helps if you get a really good Master of Hunt, then you need to get a rare legendary sighting. Afterwards, you need to roll well enough to win your hunt for the rare creature. Only 0.9% of players have ever done that. And not today, where you contract and recover from the bubonic plague. Only 0.2% of players have ever done that. I guess the plague would be pretty hard to survive. One of the scariest event chains in CK3 is all about bells. Made out of people. And it also gives you a really cool nickname. So okay, let me explain. In CK3, if your character is sadistic, paranoid, or has one of these other traits, and if you have a faction show up, you can replay a real-life legend called the Bells of Huesca. You start by getting an event asking if you want to casually murder one of your faction members, which removes their head, and then you have the chance to keep on doing that with more and more faction members, until eventually you decide to turn them all into ringing bells, and then you play their heads at a horrifying little orchestra. And for your crimes against humanity, you actually get a pretty cool nickname, the Requiem. Pretty spooky, right? Happy Halloween. Do you ever get the urge to reform your culture, and then you start looking them over, only to get so overwhelmed you don't even know what to pick? The problem is that there's so many of them, it's hard to know what's actually good or bad. So here's some of the worst ones that you probably want to avoid, unless you like suffering. First up are some mostly bad ones, like Only the Strong, Spartan, and Life is Just a Joke. They each have some benefits, so they're not terrible, but overall their costs are pretty high. Like Life is Just a Joke, making your vassals way more likely to revolt. Next up are the really bad ones that you should basically always avoid. This includes warrior culture, which cripples your cultural fascination progress super hard, and equal inheritance, letting both your sons and daughters inherit, and putting you through even worse gavelkind hell. Sorry, equality. But the worst one of all is frugal armorers, which absolutely destroys the toughness of most of your troops, including an 80% reduction to levy toughness. It's super not worth the 25% reduction to army costs. Like, genuinely, you should never take it. I'm gonna go on a rant. In CK3, there's lots of different men-at-arms types. Some you unlock through science. Bowmen are good at fighting light infantry, horses are good at fighting bowmen, pikemen are good at fighting horses. All of these units are pretty fair and balanced, but then you have the cultural men-at-arms, and this is where things get sad. Now, admittedly, some of them are pretty cool, like war elephants, cataphracts, but there's one men-at-arms unit that's so bad, you should never build it. The Sarawit, a heavy infantry variant. But Cara, why are they so bad? Out of all the heavy infantry, they do the lowest amount of damage. They only counter light cavalry instead of the usual pikemen, which is way less useful for their terrain advantage in the mountains. And they're the only heavy infantry variant that has a terrain debuff for dry lands and desert, which is everywhere around them. Why do they even exist? CK3, but I have all the worst traits. John Van Von Burn. My traits are compassionate, eccentric, shy, and paranoid, which all give me a ton of stress. Probably literally be happier being a peasant. My goal is to kill the emperor. Let me get married. I could use some kids just in case I die. Are you serious? I'm already getting a whole stress level from a random visitor. Even if I deny her? Oh, because I'm compassionate. Yay, reclusive. I'm gonna go on a hunt. How do I already have a stress level from a random event? Oh, the emperor's gonna be there. I might as well kill him over there. Oh, is that 212 stress? Oh my god. I literally keep on getting stress events at the hunt. Yo, I'm gonna die so quickly. I've never even seen this before. Okay, we can kill the emperor here. I hope it works. Oh, it didn't work. So we just got a bunch of stress for no reason. Okay, that's cool. I did get a stag antler. Good job, Van Von. I have another chance. It's gonna give me max stress again. I did it. Mwahahaha. I just learned something crazy. In CK3, whenever you go traveling, you'll see areas that are safe and areas that are dangerous. The more dangerous an area is, the more likely it is to give you a danger event, which range from annoying but not too bad to very bad very fast. There's an event so bad that it can wipe out your entire court and most of your family, probably including your heir too. And the craziest part is that this event actually happened in real life. You get this danger event by traveling at sea through dangerous waters without a good sea captain. The ship cracks in half during a storm, and everyone perishes in the cold, dark depths of the merciless sea. So basically just avoid the danger. It's not that hard. Today is a sad day because diplomacy was actually useful. So I was trying to dissolve the Byzantine Empire as fast as possible because it's funny. At first I thought that intrigue was perfect. Kill the emperor, get some hooks, have everyone join my disillusion faction, and boom, Byzantine Empire gone in under 10 years. Wow. But no, weak hooks are useless for factions. Only strong hooks force people into factions, and they take forever. So my first run didn't work, but my second run went way better because I used diplomacy. Now, being friends with other vassals also doesn't work. I wasted a lot of time on that, but the real game plan is form the faction, declare it, and with diplomacy, make alliances outside the Byzantine Empire everywhere. And now you have more troops than the Byzantines, and you can take them down pretty quickly. And boom, I win. Mwahaha. Intrigue goes down here, diplomacy goes up here. If you want to see if I was able to do it in under 10 years, check out the full video here. So you know how the worst trait in CK3 is shy? Wrong. That's what I thought too, but some people pointed out that paranoid is worse. Maybe. Now, you do get an intrigue buff and an extra scheme resistance, so there is some upside, but then you get plus 100% stress. 2 times the stress for anything that gives you stress. And inviting anyone to your court gives you stress just like shy does. Even worse, you even get stress from inviting people to plot, so it's not even useful for intrigue. Like, honestly, you tell me, it's probably worse. You know when you're playing CK3 locked in and then you zoom out and notice that the map looks like this? It got me thinking, what's the most cursed map in CK3? To find out, I went to Reddit. Nice United Ireland. Oh. Mesopotamia, Holy Roman Empire, England only gets this part of the country. Who's Surrey? This looks pretty normal. Carpathia really just migrated the Byzantines out. Brit bongers in shambles right now. Is this just World War I? Is that what we're doing now? Let's go Albania. Ah, that's a good soup. you got there. Why does it look gerrymandered? Okay, this one wins. CK3 DLC's tier list. Which one should you get? Part 3. Roads to Power is incredibly fun. There's a lot of recency bias around it, but it's some of the most fun I've had with a new DLC in a long time. You fulfill contracts, you can be a little criminal, you don't game over when you lose land now, you can just travel around the world, or play as weird historical characters you've never had a chance to before. Like Fibonacci of the number. S tier, I really like it. Northern Lords. As much as I love Vikings and I like raiding and setting up my little IKEA empire, it's really single-minded, especially since it only added Norse flavor. And I still feel kind of weird that it was the first DLC after CK3 came out, and it took such a long time to come out that it still feels kind of disappointing for me in hindsight. So it wasn't really all that groundbreaking, but it's still pretty good. I'll give it a B tier. Koifish is sobbing right now. And finally, Legacy of Persia. You can revive Zoroastrianism and do all sorts of stuff, which is really cool, but I feel like I'm lacking the IQ to figure out the struggle phase system. C tier for I'm silly. We just had 50k subscribers. To celebrate, as a community, I'll be giving you the gift of peace of mind. I'll be healing us by atoning for my sins. By talking about every mistake I've made in my shorts, because I have messed up a lot. First of all, I didn't know this. The wedding murder thing actually happened in history and it isn't necessarily referencing Game of Thrones. Second up, immortal isn't actually a trait in CK3. At least not yet, because I am allowed to share this screenshot of the new DLC. There's an immortal trait now. So I was wrong by 2 weeks. I'll take it. Third, CK2 didn't have naval battles, it had naval transport. Fourth, eccentric is actually kind of a good trait secretly, it's a long story. Fifth, I said Denmark invaded England in 1066, but it was actually Norway. That's my bad. But most importantly, the biggest mistake I've made so far. I said Baldwin IV isn't gonna be in CK3's new DLC, Roads to Power, but he is. I just thought he died earlier, so that's my bad. Am I old now? CK3 is great, but my favorite game is still CK2. So here's what I think they should add to CK3. First, there should be an actual way to become immortal, just like there is in CK2. I don't care how unrealistic it is, I still just want it. CK3 is also missing a lot of flavor that CK2 had. Playing as merchant republics, having naval battles, trade and prosperity mechanics, and having some way to interact with China again would be really cool. But here's what I want to see re-added the most. Secret societies. They let you roleplay as an alchemist or an order of monks or join a warrior clan to get some pretty broken bonuses. The craziest one is a Lucifer's Own, the devil worshipping one. You'd sacrifice people, do crazy rituals for the horned god, raise up actual demon armies, and if Satan was feeling nice, he even let you regrow missing body parts. CK2 was so weird. Now, a lot of you have said CK3 is basically Game of Thrones, and it's even more accurate than you realize. You scheme, plot, murder, seduce people, including your siblings, go to war, do all sorts of shenanigans to get yourself in power and maintain your bloodline. So this is pretty true. Basically everything's there except for dragons. And there's even Game of Thrones references in Crusader Kings, like calling yourself Lord Snow or plotting to kill a bunch of people at a wedding. And that's all before even mentioning Game of Thrones mods too, which have always been some of the highest effort, most played, and most polished conversion mods. But here's what you might not know. Not only is Crusader Kings basically Game of Thrones, it's literally Game of Thrones. Because what name did lead designer Henrik Fyrus want to call it instead of Crusader Kings?
Sadly, the game was kind of stuck with a bad name. What it really is a Game of Thrones. That's the name I would have picked if it had been available.
CK3's new DLC looks insane, and they're adding the actual best thing ever. Let's go over all the new content. Some small stuff, we're getting way more Byzantine flavor, new men-at-arms, new cultural tenets, and in-depth eunuch mechanics. My favorite. The first big feature is the administrative government. It's kind of confusing to use influence to do stuff. You can levy your own vassals' men-at-arms, and finally you can tell them to do things now. We're also getting a new start date, 1178, with Saladin and the Crusader states, but without Baldwin IV. Why? Or experience the most liberating feeling in all of Crusader Kings 3, small France. But out of all of this insane new content, my favorite feature is the new playable laneless characters. You can play as an adventurer, mercenary, claimant, or even a criminal, where you can complete contracts and gain enough power to get some land of your own. Or you can roleplay as a caravan master forever if you wanna, I guess. I fucked up. I've been saying for months that diplomacy is kind of bad in CK3, and for most situations I still think learning or stewardship are way more useful. But the problem is, when I tried out a diplomacy lifestyle game for myself, without declaring a single war and only vassalizing other characters, I found out that it's super overpowered. You can basically consume half the planet and people love you for it. I'm sorry, diplomacy enjoyers. I was wrong. I'm not too wrong though, it's still only like a C tier. Check out the full video if you want to learn how. Always read the fine print. Someone on Reddit shared this CK3 screenshot, showing a pretty normal mercenary contract, besides for one small problem. You need to go to Wales. Just kidding, I love you, Wales. The real problem is that they got swindled by signing up for a service contract that lasts for 367,250 days, which, if you don't understand just how hard they got robbed here, means they signed up for a contract that lasts for over 1,000 years. And so if you signed up for this contract in the year 1000, you'd still be fighting in this one war by 2020. This is why you should